What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football League Winners. My name is Will. Joining me is my co-host Eric, and we got a fun one for you today, guys. We got an ADP battle. We're gonna go through a bunch of different matchups. Before we get started, Eric, you got anything for the people?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get into this video. I think it'll be informative, especially now that we're in peak draft season for you guys to hear this and try to differentiate between some players that are going close in ADP. But also, before we get into it, I would just like to encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel for all the great content that we have coming out. Like the video, comment, engage with us. We can respond to everything, answer your questions if you have any. And also, check the link in the description below for our promo code over on Sleeper. You can use our promo code FFLW to get a 100% deposit match over there. So if you put in 100, you get an extra 100. And you can use that for all your DFS needs, all your pick'em stuff. All of the possible games over there on Sleeper are up for your use with this promo code. So go check that out. But yeah, with that being said, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into this first matchup. We're gonna start with the quarterback position. I'm gonna go through a couple different matchups for that. The first one we got is Mr. Justin Herbert, who's currently going as the QB6 versus Mr. Justin Fields, going currently at the QB7. A little battle of the Justins. What do you think about this one, Eric?
I want to say this is a tough one, but they're all going to be tough ones. That's the reason they're on this list. I love both of these guys in the middle rounds of drafts in that kind of 4 or 5 range in 1 QB leagues. For me, I think Fields just edges out Herbert for me. The floor that Fields kind of provides as a rusher gives him just an incredibly consistent floor. And if he improves as a passer at all, that's going to raise his ceiling even further to the point where he could even compete for the QB1, I think. In fact, from week 6, when Chicago kind of started calling more design runs for him, to week 15, when his fractured ribs and sprained AC joint started to really slow him down, he was the QB1 overall in points per game. And I know that that's cherry picking a little bit as far as sample size, but it really goes to show like what he's capable of when he's healthy and deployed correctly.
Absolutely, and that rushing floor is just such a big thing in fantasy football that just can really take a player over the top. But just taking a look at just stats, Justin Fields, just to show you how crazy the rushing floor is, Justin Fields had about 3 times more carries than Justin Herbert did last year, because Justin Herbert's not a running quarterback, but he had almost 10 times more yards. So
yeah,
that's a lot of production coming out of there. I know Justin Fields not known to be the best thrower in the world, but we're hoping this year he takes a step up. Apparently over the preseason, he's really good at throwing screens, but I'm really hopeful for Justin Fields taking that step up this year. Like you said, he's got QB1 potential, especially with that rushing floor, and then just being able to, just being able to handle that workload a little bit better than he did last year. I don't think he was as prepared for it as he could be this year going into this one.
Yeah, and we didn't even mention the fact that his receiving core is far upgraded from what it was, at least at the end of last season. His top receiver was like Equanimeous St. Brown as we were ending last season, and now he's got DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, if you want to include him in the conversation. So yeah, at least a step up from what he had last year.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the next matchup we got down here. We got Mr. Daniel Jones currently going as the QB14 versus Geno Smith currently going as the QB16. This one is spicy for sure. Eric sent this list yesterday, so we got a chance to kind of look at it. This one was one of the more spicy ones I saw. What do you think about this matchup right here? Because it really is 2 different style quarterbacks, really.
Do you want to alternate, since I kind of led off the first one? And we didn't talk about these beforehand, so we don't know who each other's going to pick. I'm curious your thoughts, and we can kind of go back and forth on these.
Okay. So if I had to pick, gun to my head right now, I had to pick one of these two, just because they're going so similarly in ADP, I would probably go for Geno Smith. I feel like he's the cheaper guy out of these two, and he's going to have similar production to Daniel Jones. It's weird because we just talked about Justin Fields and Justin Herbert, where Justin Fields, I took him because of the rushing floor, and that's something that Daniel Jones has. And his receiving core is a little bit better, but it's tough to really count out Geno Smith when he finished last year as the QB5, and his receiving core just got better. They got another receiving running back in Zach Charbonnet, another guy who can catch balls out the backfield. It's just the team got better around Geno Smith. So it's really more of a question of, was last year lightning in a bottle, or was it a sign of who Geno Smith is as a player? And I'm willing to bet on Geno Smith in this offense and bet on the receiving core he's got out there, to be honest with you. So I think I would go Geno in this situation, but it's really, really difficult.
It's super tight. I think I lean the same direction. Geno, like you mentioned, did finish as the QB5, and Jones is the QB9 last year in overall points. But on a points per game basis, the roles were just barely reversed. Jones was the QB10, and Smith was the QB11. Smith was ever so slightly more consistent week to week, whereas Jones was a little bit more boom bust. So maybe it comes down to preference, whether you're looking for those kind of week-winning weeks and then some struggles in between. So there's not really much separating these guys, but the main two differentiators that I look at when trying to make this decision is that I don't really believe in the Giants wide receiver room. Obviously, I like Waller and that addition, and that's going to be huge for them. But outside of that, they just don't have real difference-making receivers on that offense. Whereas the Seahawks are the exact opposite. DK, Lockett, and JSN, the addition of him coming in, I think is going to be fantastic for Geno. And then also another point that I think is probably going overlooked is that the Giants have the hardest projected strength of schedule for quarterbacks in the entire NFL. The Seahawks are kind of sitting in the middle of the pack at 18th. And so that's probably going to be what really differentiates these two from me.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I'm glad we're in agreement so far. It's kind of crazy. That's probably not going to stay the same this whole video, I might say.
We'll see. We'll see.
Taking a look at the next matchup we got here, we got Mr. Dak Prescott at QB10 versus Tua Tagovailoa at the QB11. This is another more interesting one here. Why don't you kick this one off for us, Eric?
Yeah, so I can't keep saying they're difficult. They're all difficult. Dak has shown us the ability to finish as a top 5 quarterback before. He's done it. He's proven it. But he's coming off of a down year, whereas Tua is kind of doing the opposite. Although it was on a limited sample size, Tua showed us that he could be the most efficient passer in the entire league last year. So that's obviously really encouraging to see. But some of the things that might actually separate these two for me when I look at it is that Dak loses Kellen Moore, so Mike McCarthy is taking over as the play caller. He's made it abundantly clear this offseason that he wants to run the ball more than Kellen did. And also, their defense being as good as it is might reinforce that even further. If they don't have to play catch up in games, if they don't have to throw to win games, they can just kind of run the clock out. I think that Mike McCarthy will be all over that if he gets the opportunity. And then on the other side of the coin, Tua has Mike McDaniel, one of the best and most creative offensive minds in all of football right now. And I just think they have a better weapons group around them. So again, super tight, but I think I'm going to lean towards Tua in this pick'em here.
Yeah, I agree. Last year we saw Tua performing at an almost historic rate, or not even almost, it was a historic rate in terms of accuracy, in terms of being able to get the ball out there quickly. Tua was just, I think the only concern here is injury. That's the thing that's really bumping Tua down, because everybody kind of feels like, in this general consensus, Tua's kind of one hit away from not playing football again. And, that's kind of scary. But when you look at Tua, the rates he was throwing at, the rate he's playing at, the way Mike McDaniel was able to draw things together for him to perform out there, and the receiving core with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, because that's all you really need is those two. It makes for a very good situation for a quarterback. You just hope that he can stay healthy. And, all indications have been that he's been working to protect himself a little bit more. So, in my opinion, I would take Tua before I take Dak Prescott. I feel like the ceiling is a lot higher. But, like we talked about, there's risk. But I would still go Tua here. I think Tua's the better option.
Yeah, and you mentioned you got to hope that Tua stays healthy. You got to hope that Dak stays healthy. He's been injured quite a bit these last few years as well. Not that we're predicting injury on either of them. It's just something you got to consider for both. Absolutely.
And that's going to round out the quarterback position for us. Moving on to the running backs. Our first matchup, we got Mr. Travis Etienne currently going as the RB10, and Mr. Ramondre Stevenson currently going as the RB12. So, if I'm taking a look at this matchup right here and I'm trying to figure out who it is that I want to take, me personally, I would probably lean towards Ramondre Stevenson. Now, the reason why I would lean towards Ramondre Stevenson, I feel like last year we saw him produce at a super high level. We saw him get those, 88 targets or was it 88 catches? Do you remember?
I can fact check that right now.
Okay.
I want to say it was 88 targets.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec.
But with that being said, while he's looking that up, Ramondre Stevenson, his role in this offense hasn't really changed all that much. I think people are downgrading Ramondre right now because of Zeke, and duly so, because Zeke can be out there for just about any situation that Ramondre Stevenson could be out there for. The problem is Zeke isn't as good as Ramondre Stevenson, so he shouldn't be out on the field as much as him. And Ramondre's kind of broken out of that mold that we've traditionally seen with New England running backs, where it's a committee, like a super committee, to where I think they're more willing to lean on him. And I do think Zeke is going to eat into some of the red zone work, and he's going to take that away from him. But if we're looking at the Travis Etienne side, they brought in Tank Bigsby, and we think that he's going to do the same. So it's not like Travis really has the edge in that. So in terms of who I think is going to produce more, I'm going to go with the guy who, did we find out what that was?
88 targets and 69 receptions.
Yeah, nice. I'm going with that guy. So
Yeah.
I'm picking Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah. Incredibly similar situations, like you mentioned. Both young, talented backs in, I think, ascending offenses. Obviously, more ascending on the Jags side. But I do think that the Patriots are going to be much improved this year. If we talk about like which offense is better, obviously the Jags. Which RB2 do you think you're more worried about? In my opinion, it's Bigsby.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So that's kind of back and forth. The thing that does it for me, and you mentioned it, is that I lean towards Ramondre mostly because of the pass catching upside that he's already proven that he has. And that's something that we hope that Etienne has, something that he showed in college that he can do, but hasn't, really proven that in the NFL yet. But Stevenson basically doubled Etienne's targets and receptions last year. And granted, like a lot of that probably came from the offensive ineptitude and the fact that they had to check down because none of the other routes were really working for them. But even if the offense improves and that leads to a loss in receptions for Ramondre, it should be offset by more efficiency and more scoring opportunities. So I'm in agreement with you here.
Yeah, and also just real quick note, the Patriots receiving core really didn't get that much better over the offseason either. Like their number one wide receiver went from being Jacoby Myers to Juju Smith-Schuster. So in terms of target competition, it hasn't really changed all too much, to be honest.
He might still lead the team.
Yeah. But still in agreement on that one, so that's awesome. Moving on to the next matchup, we got Mr. Dameon Pierce, someone who's been raising up our ranks a whole lot lately. He currently going as the RB16 versus Mr. J.K. Dobbins, currently going as the RB19. What do you think about this one, Eric?
This one, probably either 1 or 2 on the difficulty scale of all of the decisions I've had to make on this list. I love both of these guys. J.K. Dobbins has been kind of a late riser up my board. As of late, I've been getting more and more confident in him, and Dameon Pierce kind of the same. I'm just incredibly confident in Dameon Pierce's workload. I think you can really set it in stone that he's going to have 20 to 25 touches a game, but he's going to be running behind a bad offensive line in one of the worst offenses in football. Dobbins is almost the opposite, where we've seen him average around 11 touches a game so far through his career, but the offensive environment around him is so much more appealing. So I think this decision could come down to personal preference, whether you prefer the security of the volume or you want the upside of the efficiency and scoring opportunities. For me, I'm probably going to lean towards JK. I think if we're talking about what happens if these guys hit their ceiling outcome, Pierce is probably like a fringe RB1 that's very consistent in producing for your team. But if Dobbins hits that ceiling, I think he could be like a truly elite high-end difference maker, maybe even a top 5 RB. Pierce probably has a higher likelihood of hitting his ceiling, but JK is not too far behind, and so I'm just going to lean on the upside and not draft scared. I'm going to draft to win championships here.
No, I 100% agree. I feel like at this point in drafts, you kind of want to chase that upside, And it's tough to chase upside with Dameon Pierce because, like you said, he's in a bad situation in terms of the team itself. But he's a good player himself, so you're really hoping he can make something out of that himself. With J.K. Dobbins, he doesn't really have to make anything himself because he's in a good situation, he's with a good team, and he's a good player. So you put all of those together, like you said, he may not get a ton of touches, but he's going to be very efficient with those touches, and it should be a high-powered offense to allow him to be efficient with those touches. And he should get plenty of red zone opportunities, I feel like, and goal line opportunities. Because they don't really use Lamar Jackson too much on the goal line, really.
Not a ton. Not as much as you see like the Josh Allens of the world and stuff like that, or Jalen Hurts. So yeah, I think he'll get plenty of opportunities there. I do think that his opportunity share is going to increase from what we've seen in years past. That's something that we talked about on our personal channel in a recent video, just with the offensive changes and how the depth chart has kind of shaken out, seeing Gus Edwards fall down further than we expected him to be. I think Dobbins is just going to have a larger share of the rushing work. And also, with this pass-happier offense, more spread offense, I don't expect it to be a significant increase, but we're going to see more passing work for J.K. this year than I think in years past as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to J.K. Dobbins this year. Taking a look, that's going to round out the running back position for us. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the wide receivers now. I'm sorry, I stuttered right there. I took a look at this next matchup, and I literally got a little bit stuck on my words because I don't know what I'm going to do with this one. But we're going to figure it out. So for the first matchup for the wide receivers, we got Chris Olave, currently going as the wide receiver 12, versus Devonta Smith, currently going as the wide receiver 13. And this one, I know we've been saying it the whole video, but this one's actually kind of got me nervous. I don't quite know what I want to do here, so let's kind of talk it out a little bit. We got Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints. He's got Derek Carr back there at quarterback. You would imagine he'd be in more of an alpha role with this team, but you do kind of got to remember there's a wild Michael Thomas still roaming out there who can produce still if he's on the field. We've seen him produce when he's on the field. It's just a matter of him being on the field. So it's not like he's completely got that, I'm the super wide receiver 1 locked up. For Devonta Smith, we know he's not the wide receiver 1 because they got A.J. Brown, but he's damn near very close. He's like wide receiver 1B. So two situations where we got a guy who could probably be considered the 1B for their team. It's just a matter of who I think is going to be out there throwing the ball more, who's going to be more productive. Me personally, I think I might go with Chris Olave here. I feel like we might get a different Chris Olave this year. Last year we saw a pretty limited one in terms. Well, actually we kind of saw two different Chris Olaves last year because we got to see one that played with Jameis Winston and we got to see one that played with Andy Dalton. The one who played with Jameis Winston was a lot better at, deep routes, deep balls, all that stuff, tracking that stuff. When it comes to Andy Dalton, he was more intermediate, more of a possession guy. They had to use him like that because that's more of Andy Dalton's style. But we got Derek Carr back there now, who has been one of the best quarterbacks at throwing the deep ball, is willing to air it out, stuff like that. So I think Chris Olave could get a lot more valuable opportunities this year.
I'm in agreement. If that'll help you nail it down. I love both of these guys, obviously. I think Devonta is probably the more talented receiver in a vacuum, but Chris Olave is not far behind. But yeah, to echo kind of what you said, Olave just has a much clearer path to being the wide receiver 1 on his team. I find it really difficult. I guess, you mentioned Devonta is kind of the 1B. Like, it wouldn't be crazy for him to kind of take over the 1A role. I'm not really predicting it. But Michael Thomas hasn't stayed healthy in 4 years at this point, 3 or 4 years. So Olave absolutely has that opportunity. And then another point here, I made sure to kind of look at the strength of schedule for these fantasy positions as we went. And this is one where there was a big differentiator. New Orleans is projected to face the second easiest schedule of pass defenses in the league compared to Philly, who's going up against the 7th toughest. So even if it's not about the players themselves, the matchups are just going to be way better for Chris Olave.
Nah, that makes 100% sense. Also, like you said, it's tough to say that Devonta Smith's ever really going to overtake A.J. Brown at this point, just because they brought him in because A.J. Brown loves Jalen Hurts. They got a little bromance going on. So that's going to be his favorite guy for a little while, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then taking a look at the next matchup, we got Amari Cooper going as the wide receiver 18 versus Keenan Allen going as the wide receiver 19. This is a guy who, in Amari Cooper, I think is going to have a great season versus Keenan Allen, who I also think is going to have a great season. So what do you think about this one, Eric?
Yeah, this is a tough one for you. I feel like you've projected the Browns offense highly, but Keenan Allen was kind of your guy. You put him in your must-draft video. If you guys are interested, on our channel over at the FF Ballbusters, we did kind of our similar to the FF Ballers, My Guys video. We did something similar, and Keenan Allen was one of yours. And I'm going to lean towards Keenan Allen in this decision as well. This one is actually on the easier end for me. I'm surprised that Keenan Allen is actually being drafted after Amari Cooper, according to ADP. Keenan Allen has outscored Amari in points per game in every year of their careers. And really, as simple as it is, like, I have more faith in Herbert and the Chargers offense than I do Deshaun Watson and the Browns. I don't need to make it too much more complicated than that.
Yeah, Keenan Allen's kind of shown over the years, his production hasn't dropped off at all. He's getting older. The only concern with Keenan Allen is his ability to stay on the field, and he does that more than people really give him credit for. He actually is on the field quite a bit. It's last year that he had some troubles. But when looking at the situations, like you said, Keenan Allen's always outperformed Amari Cooper. I'm hoping that this is Amari Cooper's best career yet. But again, that's really conjecture at the end of the day. Keenan Allen has been showing up every year, lunchbox in hand, ready to go, every single year. And I don't expect that to change at all. And the fact that he's going after Amari Cooper as well, it just ticks him up that much further for me. So I'm also going with Keenan Allen right here too.
Dig it. Haven't disagreed yet. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Taking a look at the next matchup we got one of my boys, my boy for sure, Brandon Ayuk, going at the wide receiver 26 versus Diontae Johnson, someone else I've been huge on this offseason, going as the wide receiver 33.
And let me make a point here. So these, what you're reading off is coming from Fantasy Pros, the ADPs, which takes into account a lot of different formats and platforms. On ESPN, I just want to make it clear because it seems like these two are far apart at 26 and 33. ESPN, they're totally flip-flopped. Deontay is wide receiver 24 and Brandon Ayuk is wide receiver 30. So depending on platform, they might not be close together, but on average, they're actually right in that same territory.
Interesting. Okay, so two guys that are pretty much going extremely similarly. It just depends on the platform you're on and obviously the league that you're in. Okay. So taking a look at these situations right here, as much as it pains me to say, I'm not going with my boy Brandon Ayuk. He's somebody I'm huge on. I still think you should have him on your team. But I'm going with Diontae Johnson here because for the last 5 years, he has been, I believe, like the fourth most targeted receiver in the league. Since he's entered the league, he's been highly targeted. I think
over
he's
the past 3 years.
Yeah, that's what it is. Over the past 3, he's been the 5th most targeted receiver in the league. And honestly, you know, a lot of the Diontae Johnson pessimism we've had has been based off of Kenny Pickett and his play and how he's going to perform. Because last year, Diontae Johnson had a huge target share, did not score a touchdown. He actually had the biggest amount of targets without a touchdown in NFL history, I'm pretty sure. So it wasn't really great because he just they weren't able to get the ball to him. But Kenny Pickett has looked pretty good this offseason, honestly. I think he's going to take that step up. And even taking a look last year at some of Kenny Pickett's highlights and just plays stuff, I didn't really think he looked all that bad. He just looked like a rookie quarterback getting used to the league. So if he takes that step up like I believe he's going to, Diontae Johnson should be a smash, especially if he's going after Brandon Ayuk, because it's a guy who's probably going to get a 30% target share in this offense because he's done that in the past. And he's the best separator on this team in terms of route running, in terms of ability. So I kind of believe in Diontae Johnson here, but I'm interested to see what you got for this one.
I'm in lockstep. I'm in full agreement. I'm upset with myself that I didn't make Diontae one of my must-draft guys in that video that I was referencing earlier. I picked Tyler Lockett, and it kind of came down to we had just gotten the injury news on JSN, and it seemed like he might be out until their bye week, and Tyler Lockett has just produced year in and year out. I should have picked Diontae, dude. I should have done it. He's my guy this year. He's going way, way, way too late in drafts. He's probably a guy that should be going closer to like the 4-5 turn, and he's really going at like the 6-7 turn. It's kind of ridiculous how far he's falling. I have seen him climbing a little bit recently, but I do want to talk about both of these guys because obviously we like both of them. Brandon Ayuk I like a lot. It's just hard to project him for enough volume to surpass my projection for what Deontay's going to have this season. He's got to contend with Debo, Kittle, CMC, and just a stacked offense. Deontay's teammates are really good too. You're talking about Pickens, Najee, and Freiermuth, but they're not the same level as the San Francisco guys. And like you mentioned, 5th most targeted over the last 3 years. He's going to continue to do that. As much as I've been hating on Kenny Pickett recently, I can't hate on him more than Brock Purdy. He's absolutely better than Brock Purdy at this point. So yeah, I kind of expect Diontae Johnson to maybe even approach his 2021 season where he finished as the wide receiver 9. Like, I'm that high on him this year.
100% agree with that. Also, it tickled me a little bit when you said Diontae Johnson's teammates are also good, and then the first person you said was George Pickens. No disrespect, but you know,
on our do not draft list this year. He's talented, all right?
Talented. It's NFL young boy for sure. Taking a look at the next matchup we got here, we got Mr. Mike Evans going as the wide receiver 34 per Fantasy Pros, and Jahan Dotson currently going as the wide receiver 36. So taking a look at this, Jahan Dotson was on my must-draft list as well. So if you guys want to see the in-depth conversation, that's over there on our channel. But Jahan Dotson...
We can link that in the description.
Yeah, we can link that below if you guys want to check it out, because it was a fun video. But Jahan Dotson, I think, is primed for a pretty big year, and he's going so late that he could be such a value in drafts. It could be one of the nuttiest picks. Like, I feel like every year we're kind of looking for that guy who's going to be like, and this is hyperbole because he's not going to be this, but you're looking for that guy who's going later in rounds is going to end up performing very highly, like a Cooper Kupp did years ago or Deebo Samuel did years ago. And I believe Jahan Dotson is kind of primed for one of those years because he's going as a wide receiver 36 on a team where his lead receiver right now is Terry McLaurin, who's dealing with an injury. They're saying he's going to be fine by week 1. I'm not super optimistic about it because it is a turf toe injury. But at the end of the day, if you're even looking at usage from last year going into this year, Jahan Dotson was very highly targeted in this offense. Had a 24% target share. He had the 15th most air yard share in terms of wide receivers in the league from weeks 13 to 17. So just looking at that momentum going to the end of the season, they did realize they had a weapon in Jahan Dotson. And bringing in Sam Howell, who's looked pretty sharp so far, and taking a look at Jahan Dotson's role last year where he was getting more volume than people expect, I think that kind of does prime for a good season or even a breakout season from Jahan Dotson, to be honest with you. So that's where I'm going with right there. But who do you got for this one? Because this may be the first we disagree on.
We'll see. Well, I guess I know the answer. It's not we'll see. You'll see. Both guys dealing with questionable quarterback play. We've seen lots of years out of Baker Mayfield. He looked pretty good in the preseason, but I'm not ready to hype him up at this point. And then Sam Howell on the other side also had a pretty decent preseason. They're both projected to be the wide receiver 2 in their offenses. Although Evans is already dealing with a groin strain. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, especially, kind of a lower body soft tissue injury does worry me. Although it's not supposed to be serious according to the coaching staff, that's something to keep in mind. And for Dotson, like you mentioned, it's kind of the opposite. He's healthy, and the wide receiver 1 ahead of him, and Terry McLaurin, is dealing with that turf toe that does tend to linger a little bit longer than people would like. And so I'm inclined to also go with Dotson in this situation. I want to bet on the young ascending talent over the aging and oft-injured Evans, even though I really do like them both, and I think Evans is going at a good spot in the draft. I think Jahan Dotson is just too undervalued right now. So yeah, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to agree with you.
Hell yeah, man. Holy shit. This is crazy.
This is wild.
This is insane.
I'm not expecting this.
I was not either. So we're in lockstep. We're going into the final matchup. Let's see if we can go 10 for 10. We're going with the tight ends. This is going to get a little crazy. We got Pat Freiermuth versus David Njoku. Pat Freiermuth going as the tight end 9. David Njoku going as the tight end 10. Taking a look at also just the rankings in terms of where they're going in drafts. Pat Freiermuth going as pick number 98 per consensus, and David Njoku going at pick 104. So they're about 6 picks apart per Fantasy Pros, of course. It's going to be different across leagues. Yeah. But just taking a look at who it is I would rather have on my team in terms of situation, in terms of that, honestly, I might still be betting on Pat Freiermuth. I love David Njoku. I like what we saw last year. I feel like we finally got that David Njoku breakout year we were looking for. But I feel like the upside, or even just the role for Pat Freiermuth in this offense, is so solid, and it's been solid since his rookie year. It's not even like he took a big step up last year. It's been this for the last 2 years. I expect it to be like this year. He was able to catch a deep touchdown through the middle of the field during the preseason as well, so I think that's a pretty big indicator. They're going to be using them in those deep sort of middle parts of the field too, so he should be getting his usage. David Njoku has Deshaun Watson. But, David Njoku kind of played better last year when Jacoby Brissett was in. His numbers kind of dropped off a tad when Deshaun Watson came back in, but we're hoping Deshaun takes a step up this year. But I think I'm going to stick with my guns. I think I'm going to go Pat Freiermuth right here. And I don't feel like, by taking Pat Freiermuth, I don't feel like I'm missing on too much value on the people that are in front of him. And people going around David Njoku, I don't know. What do you think about this one right here? Because I'm going with Pat Freiermuth, I believe.
Bro, I have no idea. I'm so glad you went first.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear what you had to say. So this is definitely a cop-out of an answer. I'm going to have to pick one. My real answer, though, genuinely, when we come to draft time, pick the cheaper one. The guy that goes later. I guess they're going so close together, like, they might go within the same round. So at that point, you can't really pick the cheaper one. You got to make a decision at some point. I like the argument that you made for Pat. And, the Steelers team in general has had a great offseason, great preseason. They've looked fantastic in the games that they've had so far. Deshaun has been still kind of up and down. It's been a little bit of a rocky road throughout the offseason. Although I do think that David Njoku's red zone target share and his usage in that area of the field has been fantastic. So I do think his touchdown upside is really appealing, but it's hard to say that Pat doesn't have that either. Like early in his career, he had a 10 touchdown season his rookie year, I think. This is so splitting hairs. This one is the most difficult of the list for me. Should I make it interesting and just say Njoku just to finally disagree with you?
Hey man, I'm down.
I do think that the red zone usage that we've seen from him, the reports from camp and also what we've seen in the preseason has been really, really encouraging. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. And also he's cheaper, so I like that. Clearly, this one, we wouldn't mind you going either direction.
Yeah, you could literally. I wouldn't be mad at you if you picked either of these two. Honestly, there's a few matchups here. I wouldn't be mad at you if you picked either of these two. But this one right here, it's tough. And the tight end landscape is so weird to begin with that it just makes it even harder. But I'm down with the disagreement. I'm down with the two different sides.
Yeah, I wanted to pull this up because I think I had it when I was doing the research for it. But Cleveland has the third easiest strength of schedule against tight ends this year, whereas Pittsburgh has 10th. They're both top 10. They both got probably good matchups, but Cleveland a little bit better. So maybe that's how I'm gonna decide.
Okay,
that's gonna be the only differentiator I got.
Hey, that's fair, man. That's a stat. All right, that works. But with that being said, that's going to actually round out our list right there. That was a fun one right there. We actually agreed more than I thought we would, so that was pretty awesome. But with that being said, let us know. Sound off in the comments down below if you guys agree or disagree with any of our picks here. Do you guys have any matchups that you'd like to see us go through, or even like just drop them in the comments below? Because a lot of the writers for this website have been doing ADP duels as well. So if you drop those down in the comments below, you might end up in an article, and they might end up putting you in that. I'm not guaranteeing it, but just something that could happen. And make sure you guys hit that like button too. It's the best way to get our stuff out there in front of other people. It's absolutely free. So smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. That way you know whenever we drop our newest videos. And Eric, you got anything else for the people before we head out of here?
Yeah, lastly, again, like I said, check that link in the description below. You can use our promo code FFLW over on Sleeper to get a 100% deposit match up to $100 if you're looking to play some prop bets, do some DFS stuff, do some pick'em, any of that good stuff over on Sleeper. Check that out. That would be very much appreciated. But yeah, that's all I got. So if you stuck with us till the end, we very much appreciate you, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.